Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Shoe Podcast, the only sneaker podcast that is HOTTOGO. I'm your co-host, Ryan Landry.
I'm your co-host, Tanner Young. I said Ryan Landry. I was too focused on the dance.
You know what's funny is that when I was doing the intro, I almost said, welcome back to another episode of State of the Union. Yeah, we're both a little off. I just have to do this
so people know that I can do two things at once.
That's right. He is talented. He can do anything he puts his mind to. Yeah.
It's the belly of rice and gravy that's got me.
Ooh, y'all eating good tonight. We had Rouse's. Not quite as exciting. I went for the teriyaki noodle bowl, chicken and beef. Amanda got some sushi, which their sushi surprisingly decent.
I have heard really good things. I've always heard good things, actually, from you.
Yeah,
from you,
okay.
Always heard great things. So not a surprise for me.
Audience of one over here. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I don't know how many times I'm talking to. Which I'll be honest, a little sneak peek into Ryan and I's friendship. I have talked a lot about Rouse's sushi.
Rouse's sushi and yard work. It's a lot of when you get into your 30s, you really focus on the finer things in life. I would say
the deep dive into this is really just Rouse's and
Oh, that's funny.
Rouse's and lawn work.
Well, it's good to be back. I think this will be releasing midweek before Friday, and then we're going to do another episode that should come out on Friday. So fingers crossed if everything went according to plans. Double doozy. This is a little bonus content for all of the listeners out there. We're trying to get kind of back on track and on schedule with the topics here. A couple of things right at the top. Housekeeping. First of all, shout out to all of our new listeners, watchers, followers that might be here from the Air Sundermax unboxing video. Thank you all. If you hit that subscribe button, you tuned in. That was a fun little video to do. And by fun little video to do, I mean stressful, but it was good. I had a good time.
Hey, you looked good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I got the little notification. That's right. Ooh, I'm subscribed and bell.
He's got the bell turned on.
You don't have to. You don't have to bell.
But you should.
Bell. You don't have to bell.
Yeah.
Sweet way to know.
He belled so I don't have to. Yeah. But yeah, the unboxing videos are always like it's just not something I do a lot. So every time it comes time to do one, it's like, how do you do this again? But
yeah, fair.
They seem to do well. So we keep doing them. That shoe, Sundermax, liking it a little bit more than I thought I would.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty.
It not too bad. If you didn't catch it, if you haven't seen it yet, go catch the unboxing video.
Come on.
And if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button.
Come on.
Wherever you're listening or watching, you can catch us on YouTube or on Spotify for the video, but also on I think it's called Apple Podcasts. I don't think it's called iTunes anymore, but I'm so in the Spotify ecosystem, you would have to tell me. But Google Podcasts, they did away. It's just on YouTube Music now. Anyways.
Add it to the Google cemetery.
Yeah, we did that on the last episode. It's a good callback.
Come on. I listen.
Yeah, he's tuned in. He's tuned in. And speaking of tuned in, how could you not be to the news reverberating through the sneaker landscape over this past week? This one not so yikes. The next one a little bit more yikes, but this one want to talk about today's topic. Nike has announced that they will be doing a re-release of the infamous Wu-Tang Dunks, along with a rumor going around that the undefeated Jordan 4 is coming back. And the internet seems to have mixed opinions on it, whether sneaker grails should remain grails or should people get a second chance at grabbing a pair at retail price. So that is what we're going to be talking about tonight, as you probably already surmised from the thumbnail and the title when you clicked on it, right?
It's up there.
Yeah. You know more about this episode than we do at this point right now, you know?
Yeah. And it's actually over here too.
And it's right over here, right over to his side. So we ran a poll on this one across all of our socials at Shoe Podcast. Follow if you're not already, to ask y'all if Nike should keep retroing grails. Here's what y'all had to say. The yes is the overwhelming vote. About 16 votes there. Follow them closely by the I don't cares, which is more of a, I'm indifferent. I could go either way. And then the no's coming in with the smallest vote, just around 5 or 6 there. And thank you everyone who voted and participated there. And we had some good dialogue over on our Discord. We do love all of y'all.
Your vote matters.
Absolutely, it does. But I think what was most exciting to me about this, little voter transparency here, I voted yes on this topic. I see the responses. I saw you voted no on this topic, and you and I have not talked about this since. So this episode is live on the air, stepping into the ring, going into the Octagon, the Thunderdome. Two people with differing views enter and two people still emerge because we still have to keep doing this podcast, but we're going to hash it out. We're going to see. Yeah. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this.
My answer may surprise you because I was gonna. I'm glad. I'm honestly glad it's a weight lifted off my chest that you brought this topic up because I was gonna bring it up. I just didn't know how to start it.
Okay.
And the funny thing I was gonna say is honestly, I think this is one of the things where, depending on the day, my answer will change.
Yeah, and that seems to be a lot of the discourse and conversation about this online is that a lot of people, myself included, don't have clear-cut black and white of like right and wrong. It's very kind of sneaker specific. And so we'll have a segment later in the episode where I pulled together 3 just fun examples for us to go through one by one and see if we can figure out our own criteria of what does or does not make it okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it honestly depends on the day, and I think more importantly, it depends on the shoe.
Yeah,
because I will kind of depending on how familiar I am with the backstory.
Yeah,
whether I was like in the sneaker culture enough to be aware of this. Do I know the history from things like that? So there are a lot of shaky variables that come into answering this question. In the moment, I was on my high horse of like, no, you shouldn't retro them. You should keep them special. Yeah. And while that may be, because in that mind, whenever I answered, I was like, I think it is hard to answer this question, especially like nowadays, not to be like the old man on the porch of like, you can, like, this is probably in the timeline of human history where you really can have almost everything pretty instantaneously.
Yeah.
Where, and like, sometimes like with the retro, I'm like, hey, it's okay that you can't have this. It can still be special, even though it's unobtainable. And sometimes that's what makes a grail is how hard it is to obtain and not necessarily how much in debt are you willing to go into. So that's sometimes I'm like, I think there are shoes where it's like, hey, I think like, it's a bummer you weren't into collecting sneakers at the time, or you weren't born. And sometimes you gotta go,
Dad, right? Like that's who we're gonna blame here.
And sometimes you just gotta be like, yep,
that's just the way it was.
Happen.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'm like, I think that it also is great because I think there's also that leads to a conversation where people, okay, hey, well, what year do you have? Like, I like that you were able to get it. I was able to, this is, a 2027 release. And then I could be, mine are the 2018 or whatever it may be, which can lead to a great conversation. Like, hey, I love the shoe. I like this detail that they kept on yours, or I don't like that they changed this because I like mine. So I think it does also lead to a good conversation. So it's such a hard question to answer.
Yeah. Well,
in the moment,
it sounds like you're a little bit on the fence with it, and I'm maybe still a little bit on the fence with it. So later in this episode, we will get to kind of our final verdict there. I think that was a good appetizer of what's to come. But I prepared for us 3, maybe
call us Humpty Dumpty,
because we're eating deviled eggs because we're about to fall. Yeah. I was trying to the appetizer.
We're on the fence.
We're on the fence. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Call us the squirrels. Also we're on the fence. Because he was on a wall, right. And depending on
I just figured it was
who paid for the wall, Anyways,
probably the King's Men.
And we're moving into our first topic of discussion here. So this is where a couple different topics that I put together here, points of view for us to consider, getting into the nitty gritty of it. The difference between retroing a past release versus bringing back a grail. So is there a difference between re-releasing a shoe that had a relatively wide release, maybe has already re-released before, was meant to be, they wouldn't say at the time, oh my gosh, general release. Like general release.
Sure, yeah. Okay,
when the Jordan 1 bread came out wasn't necessarily a term, but it was a shoe made to be accessible to pretty much anyone who would get it, versus re-releasing a shoe that basically no one could get. So the example I pulled here, the original Air Max 90 Bacon, right? Dave's Quality Meats. It releases in New York, super small run, in person only. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this difference between like both of these shoes now have come back since their first release, but one of them is definitely seen as more of like and we expect we're going to get it more and we've gotten it before this versus we never knew or thought that this would come out again.
So what is the question? Is that like, are you saying like just generally, is there a difference whenever they do it?
I guess, when you think about re-releasing Grails, like to some people, the Jordan 1 Bread is a Grail, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But is there a difference if your Grail is something that like you expect to come out more regularly versus something that comes completely out of nowhere, like the Air Max 90 Bacon? Do you think one of these is more sacred than the other to touch?
I would. So first off, so Grail is also like a really tough gray area for sure. So
very subjective.
I mean, like you said, someone may say, the newest release of the Bread Jordan is their, that is their Grail.
Sure.
Compared to like the original release, whatever, that year that it came out, or like same thing with like the Chicago colorway. It's like the 1985 release doesn't have to be the only Grail. It can be a more recent release.
Yeah.
So Grail is tough. And that I think gets into a bigger conversation that probably leads more to, the snootiness of the sneaker culture. But Grail are like in the sense of, is there a difference? I would say yes, especially if it's one of those things where it's like, we have just gotten accustomed to a retroing of a colorway.
Yeah.
Whereas the Bacons is one of those things where it was like, man, this was such a limited thing. And everyone had the assumption that it was just going to be this one instance.
One and done. Yeah.
And it's also tough because I don't remember hearing a lot of people be upset that they were doing another run of the Bacons.
Yeah. When the Bacons retroed specifically, everyone was pumped. Everyone was pumped or indifferent, right? I don't remember people being mad. There were people who were like, I think ourselves, pretty excited about it.
Very.
Not necessarily that either of us, I think, would have called the Air Max 90 Bacon a Grail. Like, it wasn't something either of us talked about a lot or like really desired strongly, but I think both had an appreciation for and were excited. And then there was, I think, a pretty good chunk of people who were like, I do not care that this is coming back out,
Yeah. And the tough thing, which I don't know, how much, where this will lead us, but really is, I think the thing that are the two things that may play a bigger role in retroing is how much time has passed and how many times have you done it?
Okay.
That I think plays into more where people start doing those calculations of when does this go from, oh, I'm excited to, okay, I think you should let a good thing just be a good thing. I think that is the two things that we really, that's in our formula somewhere. It's either above, it's cubed, it's somewhere.
Yeah, I think also the other thing that I don't know if it necessarily ties into this talking point, but this whole episode will kind of be like a circular conversation here, is that when you look at these two specific examples, like the Bread Jordan 1 at the time it was released, to the best of my knowledge, because I was not there for it, but wasn't so much like a moment. It wasn't necessarily beloved and adopted when it first came out. It's just since then built that history and that legacy to it because of what Michael Jordan did in it. Whereas the Air Max 90 Bacon, like the event of it releasing is a lot of the allure of it. So there's something I think too about like the moment that happened around it when the first iteration of it came out probably also ties in a little bit to like the sneaker culture, sneakerheads' sensitivity to it being re-released. If they feel like Nike or whatever brand is just trying to like milk a moment that they've already done, or if they're just, in the case of the Bacon, or if they're just going back to the well in the case of like here's something that's retroed before and it's coming out again,
Yeah. And I do think that in both cases, I think people can be hype and also like, okay, let's slow the roll on this one. And I think also, adding to the formula is when the shoe, which unfortunately, it seems like now more recently, when a shoe releases, was it hype? Was it not hype?
Yeah.
Now, more recently, you are seeing a lot more of exclusive releases.
Yeah.
Which does also add to the difficulty of really loving the sneaker culture, is because it's almost just like they only exclusively are cooking heavily on these exclusive things.
Well,
so in the point of like the bread being more of like, hey, this is going to have a large availability. So everyone is already like, has that mindset behind the shoe of that it will be available. It should come in large and we should see it very often. Yeah. Whereas shoes like the Bacon, where it's like, hey, this is going to be limited. So then our mindset from the initial release of the Bacon is this is exclusive.
Right.
So that the more you do something, it weakens that exclusivity, which then makes me upset.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So that's a thing for you that you don't necessarily like when they water down something that kind of was elusive, maybe to like first begin with.
Not to me personally, but I could see that being
speaking. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that being a part of it is how was it released originally? Like, what was the original thing? You know, like, in the sense, you know, like, hey, this shoe was already a big production, so there is no exclusive behind it. So I'm assuming, or my mindset is already set with, there will be a lot of people with this shoe.
Yeah.
Whereas limited releases, it changes your mindset.
Right. I agree with that. You saying that you think a lot of people have that viewpoint. I think that same thing as well. And we'll talk about it a little bit later in this episode. I have one of the examples that I was talking about. I've got a very good specific personal example on one of those where, you think, I'm going to say you think that like them re-releasing something that you hold so sacred and special is going to kind of like tarnish it and like mess up that memory or that like allure that thing has. And I think that's a lot of people's fear, is that like they are just kind of like taking away a lot of the quote unquote moments that like stand up the pillars of sneaker culture, and just like, well, if everything can eventually come out again, then like when is anything ever important, you know? Which
that is true.
I don't know that it has to get that deep, you know? And I'll talk later a little bit. I hope I remember to. I'm trying not to like jump from topic to topic too much, but I think I've got a good example of later in this episode that'll speak to that. But something you mentioned earlier, it was a great segue. I'm sorry I didn't take you up on it at the time. I'd like to try and have that now.
Retro it?
I'd like to try and retro it. This man's on fire tonight.
I gotcha.
The amount of time between the first release and the re-release. So the example that I pulled here is the Atmos Nike Air Max 1 elephant print, originally released in 2007, and then retroed, re-release, I don't know what term you want to call it, if those two are interchangeable to anyone, but came back out in 2017 for the 10-year anniversary. Do you have any thoughts? Does it make any difference to you of if they bring back a shoe too soon, is it not as cool as giving it some time to sit and breathe before you bring it back?
I do think that does, but for me personally, yes. I think giving now, unfortunately, I don't know what the timeline is.
I was going to ask if you could quantify it. If I said a number, could your gut tell me is 5 years too short?
That might be, I think 5 years. I think anything under 5 years.
Okay.
I think 5 and 7.
Okay.
I think 5 and 7 is a pretty good year. I think you'd have enough people to be like, okay, I remember that. It's still somewhat fresh.
Yeah.
And I think anything post 7 years, I think you're probably in a good spot. You've either got people, because I think that's enough time for people to be new into being into sneakers who have never done it. You know, maybe they knew about it a little bit and then now they're really getting into it. They are probably, you know, getting their first big job, have some money. Or it is people, you know, it gives enough time for people to get that nostalgia of that time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think time for me probably plays the most important role as to when I go, okay, I'm not really into this. And again, it goes for a retro, a re-release, you know, whether it is, hey, we're bringing the Jordan Bread back, you know, or, you know, the Black Cement 3, you know, of being like, okay, so when okay, I do remember the last time this really, I think enough time. I don't actively think, okay, let me count the years.
Right. Yeah.
But you do have that kind of reaction of like, well, this seems kind of soon.
Yeah. Well, and I think 5 years is a good number because that's enough time to, once like a popular shoe has come out, that's enough time for the dust to settle to see like, hey, is this actually like, I hate to say a grail, but like, was this actually a big enough moment that if we brought it back, there's not so much of a recency bias that people are just like, oh, that was crazy. Like, if this year they re-released the Jordan 4 SB Pine Green, like I'm sure people would buy it and people would eat it up, but like doing it in 5 years, if you could still do it in 5 years, is a really good testament to like that shoe was a hit, whereas
at the time,
under 5 years is kind of like, yeah, you could probably just most revisit a lot of those exclusive stuff and it'd be a no-brainer.
Now, got a question for you.
Hit me with it.
Does that time shorten the more that a shoe is retroed or re-released?
Okay. And that's what I was thinking. Cause like I keep coming back to like, OG Jordan colorways, Chicago Jordan 1s, 5 years is probably like, if they did it less than 5 years, it depends on how many they release. Like, I don't think people would get tired of them. I think even though Jordan 1 sentiment is kind of low right now, but like a classic colorway, like Chicago's or Breads or Royals outside of Reimagined, which we'll actually get to shortly. But, I think you could do those on like a 4 or 5 year basis. And it's not going to take away from the legacy of those because like they came out in the 80s and they're still relevant. So it's like,
standing the test of time.
They're pretty much standing the test of time. Yeah, I would say. So yeah, I think for some of those, like, I don't know why like OG Jordan colorways seem to be like a very separate camp in my brain, but they are of like, it's maybe because they've retroed them and re-released them so much that like they don't feel like these untouchable one moment things that we're getting again for the first time. Was the Lord speaking to you there? I just saw you look up at the skies.
Sorry, I just noticed the lights.
Oh, it's okay.
Are not static.
Oh, but it's okay. I didn't notice. I just thought it was a funny moment where you were like, "Do you want to weigh in on this?"
What you got there?
What you got there? Huh?
Shoes are for the people?
Huh?
Got it.
They need to bring back the Atmos Air Max 1 Elephants one more time because now it's been 7 years. Who am I to disagree with the Lord?
We did just say 7 was a good number.
But yeah, I think for like those OG Jordan colorways, you can bring those back on a little bit quicker, like 4 to 5 years. 3 years, I think, would feel a little like fast to keep doing some of those stuff, but especially like I keep looking at this shoe, like 10 years was like probably a little long, but wasn't too crazy long to wait.
Yeah.
Whereas something like the Wu-Tang Dunks, that's been 25 years, but those were so untouchable to begin with. There were only like 36 to 100 pairs made. Like it was nothing of a release anyways. So now it's like, might as well be 25 years, might as well be 30 years. Could have been 15 years. Like, it's like just whenever they come back out.
And I do feel like I'm not the cynical, I guess, side of me. Sometimes when I hear a lot of people be very upset about retros and re-releases, especially with like the climate of today, there is a part of me that's like, are you only upset because this shoe's going to go down in value? That's
right. That's the general kind of like the gut response or like the top comments you see on a lot of those posts is that like resellers going to be mad because value going down. And
because I mean, there is that part. So like, let's say, let's say you get a Grail, you get your Grail or like for whoever has a pair of, the Wu-Tangs that came out. Because they're re-releasing, it doesn't take away how special that shoe is to you personally.
Right. And
it doesn't take away from the fact that you were able to get it, obviously you got gifted it. But I would hope it wouldn't, because just unless like you literally have a 1 of 1, then I guess maybe there is that. But so couldn't imagine getting a Grail and then they retro it in 5 years. And then you go, I mean, I might as well. I just don't even like this shoe anymore because
now anyone could just have it, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, well, why are you upset? Are you upset because you can't resell it for as much money? And then if that's the reason why you have it and it's a Grail to you, then is it really a Grail, or are you just kind of looking at it like for money rather than like why you actually like the shoe and the reasons for it outside of that?
Well, and also it's like, yes, like you might have like, you'll have a Wu-Tang Dunk and someone else could have a Wu-Tang Dunk, but you still have the 1999 one of 100 Wu-Tang Dunks. And like, while visually they may look very similar, like you should know what you have is very different, like in terms of sentiment and probably value there. Yeah. So
100%. And like I said, like it would also be interesting, like for like this example of like the elephant print of someone coming up to you, like let's say you're wearing it. It would be weird. I would think someone would be weird if they came up to me and go 2007 or 2017.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
In that moment, I'm like, how outside are you?
have you seen
don't get me wrong,
grass? Yeah.
I love the internet.
Yeah.
You are on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm thinking you're more weird to ask me the year of this shoe.
Yeah.
Rather than how much I care of what year the shoe is. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. You're thinking about it. I'm living in your head rent free at that point, you know?
Oh, 100%. Now, if it eventually comes up of, you know, someone be like, all right, man, just because let's say the price difference is crazy huge. And, or are you just, you know, it's just a fun thing to know, then sure.
Yeah.
You know, great to ask. But if that's one of your first things you're talking to me about of a shoe is what year did this shoe release? I'm like, okay.
That being said, I still don't know why it's my exception, but it is. But it's like 85 Jordan 1s. I think like if you saw someone wearing a pair, you'd probably be like 85 Jordan 1s, you know, because like they're going to look so different and like they're going to look worn and aged and stuff. You would be like, are those 2015s or 1985s? You'd probably be like, oh, those are 85s. But maybe that's because it's more time.
It may be, if anything, I'm more just like, holy crap, I am just impressed that
they're holding up.
They're durable enough for you to wear them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is, you know, more of when I'm like, holy, is that really like, and I guess just impressed. I guess really more, I'm just impressed at the quality of the shoe. If you're walking around in some 85s,
if you're still holding up. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, hey,
so I think, it is one of those things where it's like, the value of the original might go down, but I think that's really only if people wanted to wear the original. Where like in the case of the Elephant Air Max 1s, right? You know, like the first release was not 100 pairs. People got them and wore the original. So when they bring it back, maybe the value of the originals go down because I can get a new pair that looks pretty dang close to the original and is wearable. Whereas something like the Wu-Tang Dunks is like, if you got one of 100 Wu-Tang Dunks and you wore them,
I'm not wearing that.
There's probably a lot of people who were just like, whatever, I'll just wear it to do it. I'm like, cool. You're probably then sorry, I'm getting caught up. Not the type of person to care that much about the resale value of them because you wore them, you know? So I think, it's an interesting situation.
It shouldn't take away from what you have.
Right.
Like of the shoe that you have. Cause again, you would hopefully have gotten the shoe because you just enjoy it and not because you're, and then if anything, it's like, oh, you also have this thing. Hey, now I can, if I see someone, you know, like let's say that was a Grail for me and I had it and I see someone, I'm not curious about the year. I'm just like, oh my goodness, you have this shoe. This is my favorite shoe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love this shoe. Hey, I see that you're wearing the shoe. Do you love the shoe as much as me? Because not only can I talk to you why I love the shoe, but then we can maybe talk about like the differences between the shoe.
Right. Right.
And then it's a fun, like, would you rather, which, you know, okay, what aspect do you like better on each shoe? You know, to me, it seems more of like, it would be a greater like bonding moment between two people who are into sneakers.
Then if you had that emotional maturity. Sure.
Yeah. Then someone being like, oh man, that just dipped my pair by $100.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, having a 9 to 5 does suck, but guess what?
But guess what? Lights don't stay on for free around here. I don't know where you live, but bills got to get paid.
Yeah, but get your hustle on, homie.
Before I move to the next topic, Nike, if you're watching this, Can you please bring back the Atmos Air Max 1 Elephants? I want a pair so bad, and I do not want to spend $800 on them. Thank you.
I'm just saying, one every 10 years does seem kind of crazy. We told
it's
you
a
5
little
to
slow.
7. You're in a pretty good spot.
How could you listen to us in the first half of this episode and not act on it? That's so rude.
So, and then, I mean, obviously you're not going to release it this year. So like it would be 8 years.
Yeah. Which is a good number.
7.5 by the time, which I think is
whatever. We round up. We would round up.
Yeah. So,
all right. Next topic here that I kind of wanted to explore a little bit. So the Jordan Brand Reimagined series, where they take these OG colorways from the Jordans and then they bring it back, but usually with like a material change or pre-aging on there. Does changing the materials, you think, make any difference in the discussion of whether or not Grails should be re-released or not? You know, like, I don't know that we've had a good example yet where like there's this first release of something that's super limited and then they bring it back. We do have examples of that, but one doesn't come to mind, but they change a lot of materials or something. Does that new version, is it maybe so different from the original that you don't think it tarnishes whatever mojo the original had?
Yeah, I don't think it does. I don't think it takes away from the original. I enjoy.
I was about to say, there's some stuff on here that I love, and there's some stuff on here that I do not love.
I enjoy the Reimagine.
Mm-hmm.
We're vocal about not liking patent leather, especially on an entire shoe. So
I'm not shy about it.
You keep the oil slick to yourself. BP.
La Brea Tar Pits, we see you.
But no, I think that I do like it. I do think it is something that is like, oh, okay, this gives me the whole aura of the original thing that I do enjoy, but it gives me enough of a little twist. I also like that because then it is one of those things where if someone does care so much to worry about the year or whatever, it gives a clear enough indication of like, oh, that is not from the year that I want to be. I know based off of that material or this blocking or whatever it may be that it is a new release, yada, yada, yada. So I do like the whole Reimagine series. I think that some shoes, both material and storytelling, are better. And that I think plays more of a role for me because I like the uniqueness and how they are having some fun with bringing some stuff back. And again, it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, these they're gonna bring them back. Like they're going to retro them.
Inevitable. Yeah.
It's inevitable. So I like that they are at least being like, hey, what if I just do a little twist to it? And it's usually nothing super, super major to where you're like, oh, you have butchered a original beloved.
Yeah.
It's pretty much just like, hey, what if we had done this? You know? I think it's a great thing where we look at it and go, yep, I don't think I would have liked it as much as you did this the first time.
Hey, good thing you didn't.
Yeah. Wow. Really happy that this is not your first go.
It's like they're showing us like, what if we had not dodged the bullet? And we're like, boy, I'm sure glad that didn't catch you, you know?
Glad there was other people involved.
Yeah.
But then I want them to kind of like, just really go crazy with it. Like be like, hey, instead of Tinker Hatfield had done this, it was this designer. This is what we think they would have done. Yeah. Or we did have another person in Nike who did the Jordan 4 bread, but this is what they wanted to do. Like, I think that would be really fun and a great way to bring back, to do these retros, but in a very fun and unique taste that I think feels different enough to where people are like, this feels like a separate category or like a 1A type deal.
And I'm not one of those collectors, but I think the Reimagine series is a great way. It's probably a real small like segment of customers to where like it's probably not making a ton of dollar cents, but it's a great way to get people who already own this shoe to buy this shoe again.
Yes.
Right. Like if you already have bred Jordan 1s and they introduce another bred Jordan 1, unless like your pair is beat, like you're looking to get out of your pair, you're normally, unless you're doing one to rock, one to stock, not looking to get another pair. But I can see the corner of the internet that's like, no, but that is the patent leather bred Jordan 1. That's different from the leather Jordan 1. I got to get that because it's different,
And it could even be, if you're super into like fashion and putting different styles together, that you're like, I love the Jordan, like I love the bred one so much. And now having a patent leather one, I can now do these other different outfits with this shoe.
I can finally wear my patent leather head to toe outfit that I've been holding in the closet for years now.
Eddie Murphy is going to be so excited whenever I see him on Hollywood Boulevard.
I am going to be so shiny when I step out this door. Watch out.
Yeah. So I think it is great. I really enjoy the reimagine. Like I said, I do think it is just enough to where people could say, oh, okay, I would rather you do this than just simply be like, here is the Chicago 1 colorway, but just 3 years down the line.
Yeah. I'd love to introduce a small theory to you, and you are free to take this and run with this as your narrative.
Please.
Some say the 2011 banned Jordan 1, the first reimagine. Would you hold that narrative?
I would.
That's what I was curious to see your stance on this, because I was like, I feel like you've got to have some appreciation for this, because I know,
100%.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you love the 2011 banned Jordan 1 probably more than the bred Jordan 1.
Oh yeah, no,
put that X on the back.
Oh, I don't know what about it. Yeah. I think it's so cool. And unfortunately, I'm at a point now where I'm like, I will deprive myself of a bred one until I can get that one.
Don't retro the bred one, retro the banned one. That's what he wants.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on, So, and I mean, like I have also said, like, I like the reimagined Chicago one. That may be my favorite version of the Chicago one.
It really is good.
It's just a good look. Good. I'm a sucker for like the storytelling behind it, all the promo stuff. Just the style and the look of it. I think they just did a fantastic job with this. But no, I think saying the 2011 banned bred one first. Wow, we just
first rematch. I wanted to give you that narrative. You can push that online as much as you want.
Like I need a reason to talk about that shoe. To be fair, I'll also agree or disagree with anything that puts me closer to that shoe. So
whatever I have to say, Nike overlords hear me. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot I'll do for that shoe, and a little I won't.
What would you do for the Klondike bar? What would he do for the banned Jordan 1? All right. So all of that being said, final verdict here. Each of our thoughts. Does re-releasing a Grail? I didn't have a good image for this, so I ran it through a AI image generator. Yeah. This looks like something you would find on the walls at Home Goods, but it has
100%.
But it has 2 question marks, so AI made it.
Oh yeah. Does it?
Yeah.
Take away from the original?
Listen, I did not have a better image to put here. I'm so sorry. Does re-releasing a Grail take away from the significance, history, lore of the original release? Does it make the original any less special?
Final verdict?
Final verdict, yeah.
Final verdict, I say no.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think it is one of those things where you should be happy that other people can hopefully share the joy that you have for it. And again, just because, like, let's say you had the 1999, or even you have a 1985 Jordan 1. I think you said it perfectly. If someone grabs a 2024 Chicago Jordan 1, that does not change anything about your shoe that you got in that year.
Yeah. Well, and I would venture to guess that sneakerhead out there listening, if you bought 85 Jordan 1s and you didn't buy them in 85 and hold on to them since, if you bought 85 Jordan 1s and not any year past 2010 Jordan 1s, you probably bought them because they're 85 Jordan 1s. That's probably why you bought them. So this new thing doesn't really touch it. Same thing with, like, take the Jordan conversation aside. If you bought Wu-Tang Dunks, which, like, what does your mortgage look like? But if you bought Wu-Tang Dunks, or, you bought whatever limited thing and they're re-releasing it, you probably shouldn't have, if not did not buy it as a long-term investment to like hold on to forever and infinitely grow. Hopefully you bought it because you appreciate it for what it was and the significance that it has, and them re-releasing another should not inherently take away from the fact of the matter that this thing was/is precious and limited in its form, even though there's a new form of it. So yeah.
Look, if you're trying to invest, just get a high yield savings or
an NFT,
a Roth IRA,
or an NFT,
an NFT. So just,
I hear the comments right now.
No, retros, things like that. It does not take away from the original.
I will say, probably before I wrote a lot of this down, and probably in past years, I might have argued a little bit more that like retroing it does. I think I just had such like that classic sneakerhead mentality that like, you need to leave let the moment be the moment and don't try to recapture the lightning in the bottle. But I'll tell you from personal experience, and here's a little segue here, that re-releasing it does not necessarily change the original. So we're going to move into our last segment here before we close out, which is a couple examples for fun. If they re-released it, how would we feel? And this is to kind of
gut reaction.
I put this down when I thought we were a little bit more on the fence of like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. First one up, when Adidas and Yeezy re-released the Turtle Dove 350, shout out to my man Brad Hall, that's him right there in the picture. I will tell you, when they re-released these, I was so excited to finally get a pair because I'd wanted them
100%
for years since they first released. And they dropped in 2016, I'm pretty sure. And I think they retroed last year, 2013. So 7-year gap. That's that spot we talked about. 2023. I said 2013. I had the 3 on the end and I did 6 plus 7. Whoops. So they went back in time. They re-released 3.
Marty McFly.
Anyways, they re-released these and I grabbed a pair and I was so excited because I'd wanted this pair for so long. And like, this was the 350, right? The Turtle Doves, like what it did for the Yeezy business.
Set it off.
Like this set the precedent. So I thought, not only because like stylistically I wanted this so bad, but because of like what it did for the culture and like, what a moment it was in sneakers. I wanted to have it. And I tell you, when I got it, I was excited to have it. And the first time I wore it, I was kind of excited to have it. But then after a while, I eventually just realized like what I loved about this shoe was the moment in which it released. Boom. And I could not go back in time.
I think this is I was just saying in my head that I think this is a perfect example of that. Retroing doesn't take away from the specialty of the shoe. Yep. If anything, it just brings back, it makes you remember and reminisce on the time of that shoe. So when they re-release it, you go, man, so happy the shoe is, but boy, the time.
Yep.
I remember the year, the style, like everything about that. And I think that was the
St. Pablo tour.
Boy, that was
controversial, but not as controversial Kanye.
Yeah. Seeing belugas for the first time out in the wild.
Can't go back to it.
And I think that was a great book. It's like, I don't think retroing takes away from the shoe. I think sometimes you get it and you go, oh,
yeah,
it wasn't the shoe maybe that necessarily got me hype. It was the time.
Because the moment got me hype.
Still a good shoe.
It was the shoe in that moment. And it's just not that moment anymore. Yeah.
So whenever you get it again, or whenever you get it, you're like, oh, yeah, the moment's not really there. That's around the shoe. Style wise, we've got to move away from the shoe. And then you kind of get it and you're like,
is not as comfortable on your foot as the V2. I will go on the record saying it. So to your point, you just kind of start looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, what are we doing here? I thought this would do something, but it's not.
It's like you met Batman, but when he's like 70 and you're like,
Michael,
this would have been better if you were like in your 30,
Yeah. Never meet your heroes.
This kind of hurts. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So sorry. I know this was a segue, but it was also my story wrapping up my last point. So gut reaction when they re-released the Turtle Doves, excited, was not against it. But then was not particularly for it after the dust settled,
There you go.
All right. Next one. So hypotheticals here, right? Okay. Nike retroing past big releases, limited quantities had a big moment. how would we feel if they brought back the pigeon dunk? Would that be okay or no? Would it be okay or no?
I hate that you did this to me because this one I don't know. And the whole episode, whole episode, I have not been able to nail down where I feel about
why it is or isn't. Yeah.
And I was really hoping. I tried to scroll through and see, and I kept trying to not make it obvious that I'm just sitting here reading my screen.
The guy who watches like the YouTube, like someone's POV on an amusement park ride before they get on it, and they're like, okay, where's the drop? Okay, there's a splash at the end. Okay. You would try to scroll through the dock to see what I could throw.
100%.
Here it is.
I really do not like you in this moment because I'm
so why not?
torn on this one.
What's the no?
The problem is I don't know. I don't know. That's also what is tormenting me inside. Is I look at like this shoe looks fantastic. The moment that this shoe was like just reading about it and hearing people talk about it is like so crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I in my head, I'm like, I want you to release this thing every year till it gets beat down in the dirt so that I could get a pair. Because I mean, prices on this is just ridiculous.
Untouchable.
But I don't know why, but for some reason in my like dumb caveman brain, I go, no, not this one though.
Yeah, please, not me. Yeah.
And I need you to take over so that I can hopefully compose, because as soon as I saw this I was like, I knew he was gonna do it.
He would do it. He was Landry. Yeah, I think the pigeon SB dunk is such a specific one because this maybe only second to the Paris dunk is like what Nike has like made the white whale. Like they have made this such a thing of like urban myth almost of like Yeti or Loch Ness Monster. Right. And it's like not like whether it did or did not, but just like this was what started sneaker culture of like to the next level. Like they've made it such a pinnacle thing that like it almost feels wrong to be a quote unquote self-proclaimed sneakerhead or not and be like, yeah, they should bring this back. Like I think there's something that's just kind of so ingrained in us from Nike of like, this thing is so special, you know, that like this started it all. But that being said, to me, like if this came out, I don't know that I would buy this because of exactly what it represents, which is like staple New York in that time frame when it came out. I have no affiliate, like I'd have no connection to that. So like, to me, it doesn't resonate. And like, it is a good looking shoe, but it's one of those ones that's like, it is so specifically what it is. Where it's like, I know the Bacons were also like a New York specific release at Dave Quality's Meat, but like, I think I just get behind that story more and I like the colorway of it a lot. Whereas this like
colorway's great.
Colorway is good on this one, but just like, I'm not going to say it's a bad shoe. It's not a bad shoe. It's a good shoe, but I just like, because of what strong association it has to it, I don't think I would want to buy it because to me, it feels more like getting a sticker that says like, I'm a sneakerhead. Like this feels to me like I'm trying to show everyone that like, hey, I got the thing that like we're all supposed to really want, you know?
Yeah.
But I personally just don't have any like love for it other than what like the story it is, you know? I don't have a desire to wear these necessarily.
It is just such like a simple, clean shoe.
It is. Yeah.
That is just so great. I do think it is a very good point of the story and highlight that Nike has specifically put on this that maybe has me like, no, you can't, forget everything I said. You just can't, just not this one.
Yeah.
You know, it's like one of those things where someone's like, man, you could say anything about me, my friends, blah, 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 but don't talk about my mama.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I feel like about this one. I feel like you could do whatever you want. Yeah. Not this one.
Yeah. So my final verdict, I don't think they should bring it back. Like, I think they've made it such a thing that they should not. That being said, if they did, it would not particularly offend me. And I wouldn't necessarily want to go grab it, but I also wouldn't want to go grab a pair. That sounds like where we're different. Like you want to go grab a pair of these if they bring them back.
Yeah. No. I would definitely want to grab a pair. I think Nike retros this check the stock market, because I'm sure they're down. They're down a lot.
Yeah, this is one where I think original pairs, maybe, because I think a lot of people would want to wear these, you know?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Last one here. And this, I tried to pull a couple different examples, right? The Turtle Dove came back, somewhat recent release. Pigeon Dunk has never come back before and was similar to the Wu-Tang's very small original release. But now, what if Nike releases the Freddy Krueger Dunks, which have never officially released, right? This was a scrapped project. Where do we feel like this? But also, like, Nike hasn't pushed the narrative so much, right? Because this is like this was a no-go for them. They weren't supposed to make this. And then, you know, they weren't allowed to release. There was all the pairs supposed to be scrapped, whatever. But like the sneakerhead internet has made this shoe to be up there with Paris Dunks, Pigeons. You know, like this is like you see a lot of those clips of people from like sneaker cons or whatever, and like there's always someone with a pair of Freddies, which is like there are not that many pairs of Freddies. I don't know what to tell y'all. So how do we feel if, you know, Nike's big enough now that I'm sure they can get the rights to like do a Freddy Krueger release? How do you think you would feel if they release these?
This I'm fine with. I've never been this one I've never been like as infatuated with. I know people being like, you know, I mean, like I guess it's a cool like story, you know, of, you know, the whole like scrapping behind it and things like that. But it's also not a unique story. I mean, Nike's done that with, you know,
the story behind these is Nike scrapping them, right? Like, so that's to your point, that's the difference. Nike's not pushing a story on these like they have so much with the Pigeon Dunks. They're just not saying anything on these.
Yeah. So for these, if they came out with an official release, I would be like, cool, that's great. You know, I would not want these.
You know what's funny is that I don't think I could bring myself to buy them, but these would be such an insanely good Nike SB Halloween release. Like unrivaled Nike SB.
It would be the number one. Like every list of like, if you're talking even just holiday shoes. Yeah. This is bad. This will be the best Halloween sneaker. The best holiday sneaker. It would be the best. But for me, like if Nike officially said, "Hey, we are doing the Freddy Kruegers," I think people, I don't know. It's hard to judge. I think there would be a lot of people who would be hype, and then I do think there would be probably a lot of scammers out there who'd be like, "Dang it."
Yeah. Well, but this one to me feels close to the Wu-Tang Dunks, where it's like, if you've got one of the originals and you can prove it's one of the originals, the story behind how limited, like it was supposed to be scrapped, your value shouldn't be too touched by these, you know?
Yeah, 100%, you know?
It is one of those, but it's just a personal thing where like, you know, holiday themed shoes for me as I've gotten older have been less and less of a thing because I just see them and I'm like, in the month of October, I'm going to pop off. And then come November 1st, these are going to get dusty for 11 months, you know? Yeah. That's just me though.
I mean, I agree. For these, you could bring these back every 5 years, and I would be all right. Cool. Hey, glad someone's got them.
I feel like I would want a pair just to wear for the month of October. Like it would be a great Halloween shoe. Like it's such a good nailing the assignment shoe, but I'm getting to be too practical. Where I'm like, well, if I can't wear it year round, then I don't know what I would do with it. Want it. Yeah. So
I think that's a good point. Yeah.
There you have it, everybody. Our very back and forth conversation on the fence, off the fence around our sneaker grails. Still holy. Thank you so much if you made it this far in the episode. If so, leave a comment down below on YouTube, but I think Spotify also just introduced a feature where you can leave comments on the episode. So please help us test that out. Leave a comment down below. Let us know, do you think brands should be re-releasing grails? And if so, what is one grail that you wish they would bring back? Tanner, I guess I didn't really ask you that. Is the band Jordan 1, would you put it there, or is there something else that you wish they would?
Band or Coralines?
Oh, yeah, I forget with you with Coralines, yeah.
Yeah, big sucker for that. Band or Coralines probably would be my biggest that I would be equally as hyped for. What about you?
I'd probably say at this point, Atmos Air Max 1 elephants. Not that they're crazy
Okay.
hard to find. Like, I don't know that I would put that in my quote unquote grail bucket, but it's just one of those ones that, you know, it's been enough time. I would love to get a pair for not $800. It's something I would wear. You know, I think that one for me, probably good one. We could bring it back.
Good selection.
Well, thank you everyone for checking out another episode of Shoe Podcast. You can catch us everywhere on socials at Shoe Podcast, everywhere except for where we're not.
Boom shakalaka. If
you made it this far in the episode, we greatly appreciate you listening, and probably safe to assume you enjoyed what you heard if you stuck it out for this long. So go ahead and consider hitting that subscribe, that follow button. If nothing else, drop a like on the video. It actually helps more than you think. If you want to keep up the conversation with us and our audience, you can join our Discord for free. We've got a link in the episode description down below. Tanner, before we go, you got anything you want to leave the people with?
I do.
Okay.
It's going to be bold. It's going to be controversial.
All right.
It wasn't something I actively thought about, but now that I've been doing it for about 2 weeks, might be the new me.
I thought you were going to say, but now that I've got a hot mic, I'm ready to speak from the soul.
No phone case.
I'm going to roll this outro on you right now. I'm not behind this. No phone case. Thank you, everyone, for checking out another episode of Shoe. We're going to settle this off the air. We're checking out another episode of Shoe Podcast. We will be back from the time you hear this, probably really shortly, because we are literally going to
30-something hours.
We're going to hit stop, and then we're going to record again to do the next episode. But for you, the listener, it'll probably there'll be a little bit of time between it. Yeah. So I am your co-host, Ryan Landry.
I'm your co-host, Tanner Young.
See you like literally in days. We'll be right back.
Bye-bye.